How do I make it? Who is iPad? Who knows how to use an iPad?
Is that a trick question?
iPad? Yeah, no, this is my first iPad. Yeah. Who has iPad at home? I don't want screen lock. Make sure there's no screen timeout.
Make sure there's no what?
There's, yeah, no screen time. Settings. No, not screen time. It should say screen lock. Or is it? Okay, let's see.
कोई restrictions तो है नहीं.
Yeah, this is a restrictions here. But like in, okay, what I want is, oh, it's auto lock? Yeah, done. Thanks. Namaste. Namaste all. So today is the Sangeet Bharati Sankaranti Lecture Series Day. My name is Raj Chandrasekharan. I live in Frisco and I am a volunteer in Sangeet Bharati. So I want to first thank Sangeet Bharati and all of you for giving me an opportunity to come and talk here. So today we are going to have a topic called Panchang, right? Like, what is Panchangam, right? An Indian calendar, we say. But how many of you know what the Indian calendar is? And why is that we need to know about the Indian calendar, right? That's all it's going to be today's day, right? So let me start with something very simple. Let me say Happy New Year. Happy New Year, exactly. But is it today the New Year? Why not? What is the New Year then? January 1st? What is the difference between January 1st and today? There's nothing. Huh? It's just the date. So someone said January 1st is the New Year, it became the New Year.
It's as per the Gregorian calendar.
Yeah. So someone by name Gregory said like, let January 1st be the New Year, and that became the New Year. So we are going to see now, is that how it was? What happened? And then we are going to go and say, what is the Indian calendar saying about years and New Years and time? That's exactly what we are going to do today. So in order to know what is our Indian calendar, we need to first learn more about the Western calendar, which we are all used to. When you ask what's the date, we don't say today is the Shvetavaraha Kalpe of Vaivasvata Manvantra. Does anyone say that? No one says that. We all say today is Jan 10th, 2026. Correct? So we need to understand the origin of this calendar so that we understand what the time is. So what happened is, long back, I'm talking now about 2000 years back, right? The Romans had a calendar. The Roman calendar is today's Western calendar, so we are going to see the evolution of the Roman calendar. The Roman calendar had 355 days only. So if they had only 355 days, we already see a problem, correct? We know 365 days is a year now, but these guys had only 355 days. So what's going to happen? We have to say, hey, it's 355 days, but how many months did you have? They had only 10 months. They had 10 months, 355 days, and this is what it is. March, May, June, April, and they called it quintillus, sextillus, September, October, November, December. Because in the Roman language, quintillus is 5. Quint is 5, right? We still use in Latin. Quint is 5. Sextillus is 6. Sept is 7. Oct is 8. Octagon, right? We say 8-sided figure, which means that This is how it was. And every month was a random 29 or 31. So every month was a random 29 or 31 days. If this is the case, what happened to the missing 2 months? That was in the middle of winter. They called it dead months. No one cared about it. The days were dark. People were just sitting and eating at home, doing nothing. And this is how time was for a long, long time. And then they said, okay, I need to give some names for it, right, for those 2 months. What they said is, okay, I'm going to call it Jan and Feb. Jan is from the Roman god Janus, right? He's a two-headed. How many of you are reading the Western mythology? You will find Janus, right? The Roman mythology says a two-faced god, right? Like he is looking in the front and the back. So they said, let's put Jan, and consider that as the one which is looking back for the previous better days and looking forward to the better days of the next year. So that's why they put Jan. And still, Jan was not the first month. The first of the month was always March 25th. This is how they were doing it. Because they wanted some significance of the new year. While Roman had a calendar, the humans who are living all over were not that non-intuitive, right? They know that there's got to be something to do with the universe. So they said, when the spring starts, let that be our new year. So the new year was still somewhere in March 25th. And because of this 5 days they were missing, because of 355 days, 10 days missing, once every couple of years, they will throw in a 22 days. They'll say, hey, take this 22 days. Okay, now the year has ended, spring has started, new year has started. This was how Romans were living till 46 CE. Till like Julius Caesar came into picture. Now Julius Caesar was a very famous person, right? Everyone has heard about Julius Caesar. He's a famous general, then who became the head of Roman Empire. Maybe because Shakespeare wrote about him. He said, I need to make it simplified. And he said, let's bring in 12 months. I want to make it all great. So he said, I'm going to make it uniform. So on 46 BCE, right, before Common Era, he decided, okay, I'm going to bring 365 days. Now we all know it's 365 days. Let's make this, and let's make January 1st as the starting of the year. Why did he do that? Because that was the day he could do it in such a way that the tropical year started. A tropical year is a time we see when the sun is in one location, and after 365 days or so, the sun comes back to the same position. How many of you have noticed it? Well, the sun goes from east to west, but on any given time, the sun keeps moving somewhere between north and south, right? Like it doesn't come at the same location all the time. So they decided, okay, I need to find one location where the sun keeps coming, and that will be the start of it. And I want it as close as possible to the spring and all that. And they decided, I want 365 days. And that's how the Roman calendar became a Julian calendar. But Julius Caesar was a big guy. He said, I want my name everywhere. He said, put a name for a month for my name, right? He said, call it as Julian, right? He said, so it became July. But the two dead months were in what? January and February, dark days. Who wants to be associated with the dark days? So no, put me in the center of summer, right? And that's why July came in the center, and now Sept, which was 7, became the 8th month, because he just inserted himself. Oct, which is 8, became the 9th month. So everyone was happy, he got 31 days. And then his son came, Augustus Caesar. Hey, I am better than my dad, right? I am bigger than my dad. Put my name also in it. And where do you want it, right? Hey, we got that month. No, if my dad gets summer, I want summer. I said, okay, throw in that also. August came in between. And he said, how many days? 31 days. I also want the maximum. In fact, he would like 32, but they said, like, forget it, right? We got to keep it uniform. So they make it, okay, 31 days. August came in between. Now Sept, which was 7, became 8, now it became 9. That is why September is now the 9th month in the Western calendar. This is the background, right? But all these 31 days was killing it, right? They had to take it from somewhere. Who did they take it from? February, right? No one cared about February. It's like in the middle of the winter. Hey, reduce 2 more days, right? We'll be happy we got a quicker winter done, right? That's what they did. And that is the background of the Julian calendar. And this was the case till 1452. 1582, right? Till the 15th century, this is how dates were done in the Western world, in the European world. They did not have anything else. They just made sure they were playing with the numbers, they were playing with the months. It's all completely random. And then what happened is there was a pressure from the Catholic Church. And there was Pope Gregory. He said, I want to do something a little different. He got pressure because things were happening. The Easter, which was supposed to be a very important festival for the Christians, was supposed to coincide very closely with the starting of spring. Because that's when like Jesus came out, right? Like they wanted to mark that as an amazing time when everyone can come out, right? And that's like everyone looks forward to. So they wanted to make sure it's happening. But because of this 365 days made by Julius Caesar, slowly the day was moving differently. It was not matching. The Easter was not matching with the spring, starting of spring. So they had the pressure, they did the calculation. In 1582, Father Gregory, Pope Gregory I should say, he came up with his own calendar, and that is what he did. He said, okay, I'm going to make it 365.25 days. Even though the actual day, we know that, right? 365.2422, right? That is how it is in real world. He's made it a very close approximation, 365.25. And I will throw in a leap year. Remember that February no one cared about and made it 28? Said, hey, give it an extra day, man, right? When will you give it? Make it once every 4 years, because that's when it's coming up. But then they found out when they gave it once every 4 years, on the 100th year, it was 1 day ahead. They didn't know what to do. Okay, so leap year every 4 years, but not on the 100th year. So everyone clapped, great, you did a great job, man. But then they calculated and found out that in the 400th year, they are again missing a day. Say, okay, let's change it now. Leap year every 4th year, not on the 100th year, but on the 400th year, right? This is what they came up with. In fact, by actual calculation, now all the astronomers want to change it to leap year every 100th year, every 4th year, but not on the 100th year, but on the 400th year, and not on the 4000th year, right? Because again, there is some slip that is happening today. Why is this happening? Why did all of this happen? Even in 1582, by the time the math was like, everyone knew math, trigonometry, everything was already there, because the Western calendars were random calendars. They did not align it with things that should be aligned. The day is supposed to be aligned with the sun and the moon and everything we see today, which for Hindus, it's quite elementary, because we do it day in and day out. We already see it. But they were just looking at random days. They were just giving numbers left and right? So that is the reason all this problem was happening. So they said, okay, let's stop. Let's start adopting it first. So even this January 1st we see today was not adopted by everyone at the same time. It was not like Pope Gregory said, from now on it's January 1st, leap year, 365, blah, 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 and all that. It didn't happen. Because they need to make some corrections. Pope Gregory had to remove 10 days out of it. Again, because Easter needs to coincide, right, with the spring. He did all that and he came up with it. Even then, in 1582, only the Catholic Church did it. UK did it in 1752. That part came into India later. That's why Indians are still following it, because it came through the Britishers. The colonizers came and gave this calendar to us somewhere in the 1800s when they came to India. And it went to US also, because by then US was also colonized by the British. So that's why the US also matched the Gregorian calendar. But the adoption was so late, Greece adopted it only in 1923. So which means the calendar which we take for granted today, that hey, everyone uses it, everyone knows Jan 1st is the new year, was not so even just 100 years back. That is the Western calendar. Now everyone got the history of the Western calendar, right? Any questions? No questions. Okay, excellent. Now we have to go to our Hindu calendar. You say like, hey Raji, this is great. You talk about the Western calendar. What about Indian calendars, right? Sometimes I see the moon here. Sometimes they say this is what is happening. Nothing is happening. Like, how good is your calendar? Let's talk about our calendar. We are going to be as critical as we were with the Western calendar, and we're going to understand what we did with the Hindu calendar and what was the background behind how we did it. Did we really understand time? Did we really understand days? On what basis we came up with these days and time? On what basis we decided today is a new year and not a new year, right? In order to do that, imagine yourself in a world. Like I just put you in a deserted island, removed all your electronic gadgets, no paper, no nothing. Put you in a coma for X number of days, I have no idea what it is. And then made you wake up and say, start living. Will you be able to tell when exactly is January 1st? No way. Because the concept of time is driven by your environment, right? You need a phone, you need a watch, you need a school to tell that, hey, school is starting last week, right? And you're all unhappy, right? Because school is starting. And how did you know? Most probably you would have forgotten when is school. And your principal sends a message, right? Don't forget, school starts on Tuesday, right? Because like we need to do this. And you're like, school started, right? If this is what it is for a small break, during summer break, it's the same thing. And this is going to keep continuing, right? But our Hindus, they were living with the nature. So they said, I don't want to lose time. If you see, most of our knowledge systems in Sanatana Dharma is based on environment. Because in those days, since Sanatana Dharma is so old, there is no place where you can write down and keep it. There is no place you can make a chalk mark, right? 5 days have gone, 6th day, like that. So they need to come up with a system where they can actually measure the days. Why do we even have a system? Why didn't we just live like that? Because things happen in progression, right? Things happen in an order. Without order, you cannot sustain, because the sun is in order. The sun comes regularly every day, right? The day the sun stops coming out, that's going to be catastrophic for us. So we know that the sun's got to come every day. And they are seeing this regularity happening, right? Our rishis were seeing the regularity happening and said, hey, you know what? I got to use the same regularity and start calculating what to do when. I see spring coming almost at the same time every time. Maybe I need to do my farming. I see that the fall is coming. I need to prep so that I can get ready for my winter days. And our Puranas, our Itihasas, everything talks about time, right? There is nothing done without time. That is why even our Itihasas, which is our history, Ramayana, Mahabharata, is not written down at all, but we are able to tell when it happened. Forget the people, right? We also need to be critical. Forget the people who said it happened 27,000 years back, right? Nothing like that. There are very set days when it happened, whether it's 5,132 years back or whether it is 11,000 years back. There is clues on how we are doing it. There I want to thank our Nilesh Oak, who has done a lot of such things, right? He has looked through the different astronomical events in our Itihasa and said, okay, now that I have all the computers with me, let me do the mathematical modeling and say when it happened. And very surprising, it was exactly like what has been said in Ramayana. It is exactly what has been said in Mahabharata. It says the war happened on this day when this star was in this location. Now you do it. Mahabharata timing is 5,200 plus years. You are able to get it exactly. What if this happens again and again, right? The next time it happened, the earlier time it happened, because it has not happened yet, so it's got to be earlier than that. That is 29,000 years. So he said, okay, you can either call it 29,000 years or it is 5,000 years. Doesn't matter, because we know it is at least 5,000 years old. This is why our time is not a random time. We want to do it when there were no calendars, no pen to mark down, no phones, no watches, nothing to remind us. We looked at the space and we decided time. So our calendar is completely astronomical. So that is what we are going to look at for our Hindu calendar. First, we need to understand, okay, we know astronomy, but what is the source of that fact that we knew astronomy? Unfortunately, most of our books have not sustained because there's no place to write it. Paper was not invented. Even palm leaf is not easy to maintain. You write in a palm leaf, the life of a palm leaf, even though it's dried, processed, is just like 150 years or something. So you got to go and redo. Every 125 years, someone needs to redo the palm leaf. So that's why there were people in those days whose occupation was just writing. They will make sure, because they know the value of this, right? They'll say, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to writing. My kid is going to write it. His kid is going to write it, right? They all become writers. Their aim is to look at the scriptures, read it, take new notes, so that you can extend the lease on it for 150 years. But we don't continue like that. Things change. One of the kid gets bored. Your dad is an IT person. Your grandfather is an IT person. You say, you know what? I want to become a doctor. Enough of these computers, right? How many of your kids say that? How many of your kids don't want to do anything with the computers? Nice kids. Okay. It's maybe only my kid doesn't want to do anything with computers. But still, right? The point is, this is what happens. You lose interest. You want to change your job. You want to change your profession. And you become something else. Say like, hey, you know what? I want to just sing, right? I want to become a singer. Sangeeta Bharti, right? Let's promote that. You want to become Sangeet Arts. I'm not going to write anymore, right? Boom, it's gone. If no one is writing down, 150 years later, there is nothing that's happening. So fortunately, we got glimpses of something known as Vedanga Jyotisha. We don't know how old it is, but based on the writings that is there, we are thinking it is at least 3,400 years old. Right? It's 1400 BCE, before Common Era. Common Era started 2025 years back. So this is 1,400 years before Common Era, right? So 3,400 years. And it contained a detailed analysis of the different zodiacs in our universe. So how many of you know zodiacs? How many of you heard of the word zodiac? Excellent. Nothing but constellations and different locations, right? Not the one which said, right, tomorrow you will hear a good news from your friend, right? I'm not talking about that zodiac. I'm talking about the real zodiac, right? Where we talked about, hey, here are all the different things that are happening. This is the first background we are going to use in order to understand our Hindu calendar. And then what happened is, we got hold of another book called Surya Siddhanta. This one gives much more knowledge into our astronomical, the compendium of astronomical knowledge we had. Because it's quite recent, right? It is just 1,500 years old. So 500 CE. 500 CE, we found out that Surya Siddhanta, because it was only 500 CE, we started taking a lot of notes. Many notes were remaining. We found out it was still, unlike a Western calendar, it was not a random day. It was not a random, let's make it happen January 1st, July, Augustus, I need 31 days in the summer, right? It was not like that. It had calculations of motions of Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Because those were the 5 major planets. And the 2 stars. Earth, Moon and the satellite and the star, right? So it became 7. All details were given. The actual circumference and diameter of Sun, Earth, and Moon is given in Surya Siddhanta. And that is where you find out, when you divide one by the other, you get the number 108, and they say that 108 is auspicious in our Hindu things. So they say chant the Bhagavan Nama for 108 times, right? It could have been any number, but they wanted to make sure that we remember these important numbers. So people started saying, do it 108 times. You want to do it really more? 1008 times, right? That's how our ancestors did. So they said, make it. It had trigonometrical calculations. It had a calculation of sines. Why do we need trigonometry? Because without trigonometry, you cannot calculate the movement of different objects in space. You cannot fix different objects in space. So if in school, you kids hate trigonometry, most probably you're not doing engineering. Because it's very needed. Space is everything, right? And if you want to go to architecture and civil engineering and you want to build huge buildings, trig is the only way you can do it. And we were having knowledge on it, recorded at least 1500 years back, completely written. And it also had a major thing. It calculated the tilt of the earth to be 23 degrees and 58 minutes. This is what it said 1500 years back. When people were still arguing whether the earth is round or flat, we already said it's not only round, it has a tilt, 23 degrees, 58 minutes, accurately calculated. Today, we find that it's 23 degrees, 50 minutes is the actual tilt that is happening. What is the reason that the tilt is important? Can anyone tell me? The tilting of the earth, what does it give us? Seasons. If without the tilt, there is no changing of seasons. Because the earth is tilted and the earth goes around, it virtually looks as though the earth is going towards the sun, away from the sun. And that is the different changes that helps in making the 4 seasons. So summer is when we are the closest to the sun. And what is winter? We are so far away from the sun. And since we have a northern and the southern hemisphere, when it's summer in US, where is it winter? Australia, Antarctica, forget Antarctica. Yeah, let's go to some place where people are living already, right? A lot of people. We'll call it Australia. Australia is winter. And if you see, most of the humanity lives above the equator, right? So that is why northern hemisphere is important for us, because most of the humanity lives in the northern hemisphere. So this is what is doing it. And because of all of this, we started understanding what is the calendar. This forms the basis of our calendar. This forms the basis of how we calculated our days, years, months, seasons, everything. And for the next 10 minutes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over what are the different things in our Indian calendar also. The very first one I'm going to talk about is, if we can do time on our astronomy, what else can we do with the model of astronomy? What else did we think about? Because we see it coming in order, right? 12 months are coming and going. And one of the most important we are seeing today is that in our classical system, how many Melakartas are there? You're all Sangeet Bharati people. 72. And it has been divided into how many groups? 12 groups, right? Why is it 12? Sa and Pa are constant. Correct? Rishabham is 2. Got it, right? Should I go over Sangeet class today? No, right? We're all good, right? Do, re, mi, do you want me to go? Or we'll keep our original, right? It's been there for years, right? Thousands of years. So Sarigama Padani, actually if you see it's 12 and it is mapped. So they have actually imprinted the 12 zodiac signs to the 12 swaras, right? Sa, pa being constant, and so Sarigama, Padani with all the re and the ga and the da and the ni having more, right? So this is what it is. If we can do it for Sangeet, we should have done it for time also. And that is what we did. And that gave rise to the calendar called Sauramana calendar. What is Sauramana calendar? Sauramana means sun. So one set of people said, I'm going to look at the sun and I'm going to make a calendar. Long time back. I'm not talking about they did it like in 1923, right, when Greece adopted, or 1542 when Gregorian calendar came, right? This is at least thousands years back, right? They said, I'm going to look at the sun and do it. And they used not a tropical year. Remember the problems with the tropical year? The leap year was coming, you're doing something, and someone used to say every 4 years and every 100th year, but not the 400th year, or 100th year, not the 100th year, but the 400th year. And now I want the 4000th year. All that is coming up, right? They said, I'm not going to do it. I want an actual calculation. I want the rotation of Earth around the sun, or the rotation of sun around the Earth, right? If you are looking at it from a fixed referential perspective of Earth, even though we all know that the Earth is going around the sun, with respect to a fixed star. So I won't say that the sun has come back here again, right? When I'm looking at myself, because I can move anywhere, I can forget where I am standing, because there are not enough geographical places. You all think you found out today's location using what? Most of you would have used your GPS, Google Maps, and you would have come here. You would have come many times and you would have remembered it. Think about it. We demolished all the buildings here. 10 years later, you all moved somewhere and you came back. I said, hey, you remember that location where we had this calendar chat? Can you please tell me where it is? Oh, yeah, you take El Dorado and you hang a left near Hillside, right? I was like, what is El Dorado? There's no such roads, right? You won't be able to come back here. The location cannot happen. So which means that, saying that the time it takes for the sun to come in the exact same location also did not make sense. So our guy said, I want to do it with respect to a star. Okay, sun has come here in the universe and the star is here. It's exactly opposite. Now I know we have done a whole year. And this sidereal year is much more accurate than your normal tropical year. Got it? So that is the first thing, right? And what they did was they took 360 degrees of our universe, made it into 30 degrees each, and gave it a name. They gave different names. What are the names they gave? Anyone? Mesha, Rishabha, right? They started using common. Then Mesha is what? Goat. Rishabha is a cow, right? Or bull. They started using all the names and they gave 12. They just gave names for it. These are the 12 zodiac houses. They said, now I understood. I have plotted the entire universe. What am I going to do with it? Each of the 30 degrees corresponded to a month. That's how they did 12 months. Not because Julius wanted his own month. Not because 7th month is in the 9th month, right? Nothing like that. We came up with 12 months. Because we said it makes sense to divide the position of the sun into 12 quadrants of 30 degrees each. Because 360 degrees of the universe, you can make it into 30 degrees each. And then we gave a name. And each time when it moves from one house to another house, we call it Sankranti. Kranti is what? Transition. Sankranti, Samyak Kranti, right? An ordered transition that happens is Sankranti. This is the Sankranti series, right? Every month this should happen, but this is a Makara Sankranti, which is the primary Sankranti for us. Why Makara Sankranti is the primary? We'll go to in another lecture, right? But Makara Sankranti happens when the earth starts its virtual tilt towards the sun. Because it was away from the sun, it starts the tilt towards the sun. Some people call it winter solstice, all that, right? Because now we know that the days are going to become longer. Done are the shorter days, right? So Magar Sankranti is there. And that always happens for us on Jan 13th or 14th because it is pegged to a solar calendar. So we will see it. So in another 3 days, Sankranti is coming. And we all know that, hey, sun has moved into Aries. It has moved from one house to another house. And today is that day. And that's what it is. And how do they know it has moved in? Like I said, they fix it to a completely different star, which is exactly opposite to the sun in the 360-degree universe. And they found out the place is the Virgo constellation, which is exactly opposite to the Aries constellation. And the brightest star is the Spica. And what is the name of Spica in our Indian calendar? We call this Chitra. Exactly. So that is why, what is the first month's name? Chaitra. Exactly. So our month names are also not based on kings or anything like that, right? We named it based on the star. And okay, everything is fine, but why should I take Aries as the very first month, right? The Aries is the first month because that is when the spring equinox month is starting. That is when spring is starting. So which means that we have not only calculated it, while the entire world was looking for the spring equinox, but did not understand the concept of why spring equinox is coming on this day, coming up with random days. We not only understood the spring equinox, we pegged it to the spring equinox, and we also calculated it such that we will never miss the spring equinox. Now you understand the biggest advantage the Hindu calendar had compared to the Western calendar. Just 100 years back, all these problems were there in other calendars. Now most of it is solved, right? 99.9% is solved already. But we should be proud of the fact that we were doing it thousands of years back. We calculated it thousands of years back. And that is the value of the Sauramana calendar. Now that we know, we understood how the year is, month is, I'll just add a quick note, right? This picture, I want to make sure you see it. Sun is here, Aries, of the 12 signs, right? I'm putting it like this. The exact opposite is this. It's directly falling into the Virgo. And the brightest star in Virgo is Spica. And therefore, they know that, okay, this is exactly, it entered Aries. At any given time, when you start tracking the sun on how it is going around the 360 degrees, you will see that whenever it moves into the next one, it keeps doing it, right? This is the thing. And instead of a tropical year, if you go with the sidereal year, it is perfectly aligned. So that is why sidereal, you see that Aries is exactly opposite to Spica. This is a perfect alignment. We know exactly where the sun is at any given time because we have pegged it against one of those fixed stars. Because if you are going to read astronomy, you're going to know that it's not just the earth is going around the sun, the entire universe is moving and expanding. If that is the case, what is the point in pegging something which is already moving? Unless you can peg it to such a far object, it looks like as though it is fixed. And that is what our rishis did. Who today, if they are lived, we have called them scientists, right? That is what our rishis did. And this is the background of how we named our months. I'll go a little faster, I think. We have ayanas. You have time? Oh, okay. We'll go slow then. No, they are worried. So we will do it, right? So we have ayanas. So what does ayana means? They have, now next is they understood the 12 houses. Now they need to see that earth is moving around the sun, or the sun is moving around the earth if you are looking at virtually from the earth reference point of view. They wanted to see what is the movement going on. So they came up with Uttarayana and Dakshinayana. Uttarayana is when it looks as though the sun is moving in the northerly direction. Because of the tilt, it looks as though the sun is moving in the northerly direction. It starts from Aries, we saw it in the previous one, right? From here, this is all the northern part. That is why it is called as the Uttarayana. So from here, when it moves, you're seeing it's moving in the northerly direction, right? So that is why called Uttarayana. Uttar in Sanskrit is what? North. So that's why they called it as Uttarayana. Again, everything has been named with a purpose behind it, right? So if it's going south, what is it? Dakshinayana, right? So these are the two things. From Makar Sankranti, 6 months, it is the Uttarayana, and from the 6 months back into Makar Sankranti is the Dakshinayana. This is what we did. But we were smart, right? We didn't just see two. We saw another phenomena that is happening, and which is what? This one is. We found out that the sun remains in the northern celestial sphere for some time and southern celestial sphere for some time. And we started calling it Devayana and Pitriyana. Same 6 months. And Pitriyana starts during the fall solstice. And if you ask very orthodox Hindu people, most of us, if you are in Bharat, this is when Pitru Paksha starts. They start doing all the Pitru, your rites for your ancestors, right? That is when people go to different places, give their offerings, respects to their ancestors. That Pitru Paksha starts exactly during the start of the Pitrayana. So none of what we are celebrating is a random stuff. Everything is based on an astronomical event because in those days, the Sanatana Dharma was spread across the globe. When it is spread across the globe, you cannot have something which is very location specific. So they needed to standardize it. And that is why they took the entire universe and they said, I will look at it to standardize it. So that is why the ayanas are there. The next level from the ayanas, our calendar did, was the ritus. They said 6 seasons. They found out that whenever the sun is moving every 60 degrees, they found out 30 degrees is an overkill. But when it's 60 degrees, they started seeing a pattern. This pattern might be there in most of the locations. They said, I can see 6 distinct seasonal variations happening to my location. And that they called it as ritus. Yes. The ritus? Yes. So we said every month was named when the sun moves 30 degrees, right? That's what you said. 12 calendars, 360 degrees. So 12, each month is when the sun moves 30 degrees in the 360 degree sphere. But every time we move 30 degrees, the month changes. We call it Sankranti. But seasons did not change. They found out seasons were changing only once every 2 months, which is 60 degrees movement of the sun. So they said, okay, if 30 degrees is 1 month, 60 degrees is 2 months. So they said, okay, let me look at it every 2 months and I will call it. And this is the order in which they saw it was happening. Most of it is centered towards our Bharata Varsha, right? Bharata Kanta. But this is true here also. In some places, even in US, you may not see all 6, you might see 5. You might see 4. But you will see at least 4, right? Everyone sees at least 4. But 6 is what? Is the distinct one. No one has seen more than 6. Start with this winter, go to spring, you see the summer, then there is summer rain season, which happens in many locations, right? August, you see that to southwest US, you're definitely going to see summer rains. Then you go into fall, and then you get into pre-winter. If you're in Texas, all of this happens on the same day. But in other places, it happens with reasonably regularity, right? So these are the 6 seasons. Our ancestors knew about the 6 seasons. And then what they did was, they came up with the varas, right? They said, I'm going to come up with 7 days. These 7 days was given for, again, the same thing, what we saw the planets, right? The sun and the moon, because these we see it every day, and the 5 major planets. So it became 7 days. They said, let's put it in regularity. Why each month, why each day was given for each and all that, right? For each weekday, we will go in, right? That itself will take another 15 minutes to explain. I'm not going into it, but we understood the days of the week also. Again, it was not a random day. We came up with 7 days with the reason, and we gave it each to the 7 major things we see, celestial spheres we see, sun, moon, and the 5 major planets. While this was happening, another set of scientists, another set of rishis said the regularity of the sun is followed by also the regularity of the moon. So let me start looking at the moon. And they came up with a calendar called Chandramana calendar. This is based on the moon. So that is why you will see that when you're looking at the calendar, they will say, are you a solar calendar or are you a lunar calendar? That is what the Hindus did was, in those days, they also did not do just the lunar calendar. Because lunar calendar has a small deficiency. There are many other cultures which use lunar calendar, but the problem is the moon is not 365.25, right? Which means that if you're following just the moon, you'll keep shifting. All the problems that happened when spring equinox was moving away, right? Happens also in the Chandramana calendar. So what did we do? We did something different. We are going to see what it is. First, 12 months, very simple. We know what the 12 months are. It's very same as what the sun is. But here what they did was, sun, that was easy. Sun, exactly opposite to the zodiac, you gave it. But if you see the lunar calendar, that also matches very close to the solar calendar. What did we do? The lunar calendar people said, I will take based on the moon's position closest to the brightest star, either on a full moon day or a new moon day. When I don't see the moon, or when the moon is at the brightest, I will see where it is closest to. And you know what happens in the same month? Near Aries, moon on a full moon day, Purnima, comes to the closest, brightest star, Spica, and which is Chaitra. So if you look at the same month, the solar month Chaitra, and open your calendar and say, when is my full moon day? And look at what is the star on that day. You're going to find out it is the Chitra star. And that is why our solar calendar and the lunar calendar are matching. Because we had a combination called the luni-solar calendar. Lunar plus solar. And that is what we did. So we said we will do it either based on whether a full moon day or a new moon day. Thereby, you have to, Purnima based, right? Amantrit or Purnantrit. That is what it is, right? Same thing. So in order to do this, they said, I am going to do a lunar mansion. I'm going to break the entire universe into 27 segments. And each of the segment will be named based on the brightest star. Again, this is not some random number, right? They said, I'm going to look around. I found out this 360 degrees. I found out that there are 27 segments, and I'm going to pick up 27 segments. And they said, I'm going to give the name of a star to it, which is the brightest. Why 27? Because we have found out that one segment a day, if you do it, the moon completes it in a sidereal day, not like your tropical day, right? Not with respect to the sun, but with respect to a fixed star, 27 and 1/3 days. So this 27 nakshatras is not some random numbers. They looked at it, they found that a single sidereal day of a lunar month, right, is 27 1/3 days. So they said, I'm going to divide my entire universe into 27 star lunar mansions, nakshatras, and I'm going to name it after each nakshatra, which is the brightest nakshatra in that 27 segments. And that is why sometimes if Chitra is the brightest star in the lunar mansion, and it is the brightest star in the solar zodiac, you will find that that month is already matching with each other. And that's what it happens. It keeps moving. And what are the 27 stars? Ashwini, Bharani, etc. And why is Ashwini the first star? There are 27 stars. Again, on what basis? Julius, Augustus, right? There should be some name why Ashwini is given. Not because Ashwini starts with A. A is the first letter, right? No. There's got to be some reason for it, because there's Ashlesha, there is Ardra. Why Ashwini? Again, because Ashwini is the brightest star in the Aries zodiac. And Aries zodiac is the reason why we start with spring equinox. And that is the first month in the solar calendar also. Now you got it, right? Everything is tied together because everyone is looking at the same universe but from two different perspectives. One from a solar perspective, another from a lunar perspective. But since the earth goes around the sun and the moon goes around the earth and also around the sun because it's going around the earth, right? Because earth is also going around the sun, they both are matching. That is why you will see in our Hindu calendar, you will find solar and lunar combinations coming together, because that will give you accurately everything that is happening. Yes.
Nakshatra are only on the
Exactly. So the trying to follow a nakshatra is usually based on a Chandramana calendar, if you do a Chandramana. But now that we do a Saurya Chandramana calendar, right? So you see the solar months superimposed with the lunar nakshatras, and that is why you see 27 nakshatras. Therefore, the same nakshatra will come twice in a month if you follow the solar month. Which I wanted to add. This nakshatras, I said 27 or 28, right? We cannot just in passing, we cannot be critical on one and then just let go of what we did, right? We have to say, why did we have 28? And why did we change to 27? Did we make a mistake? Did our rishis, like said, I calculated wrongly, my eyesight was not working, right? I need to change my glasses, right? Did they do that? Or what happened? That is a story for this also. If you really see, that is a 28th star. It was called Abhijit. Abhijit Muhurta, right? They call it because they are looking for the time when that star is the brightest. Abhijit Muhurta. Some major event happened on an Abhijit Muhurta a couple of years back. Anyone can tell me? Yes. Exactly. So the Ram Janmabhoomi Prana Pradishta, they looked to that Abhijit Nakshatra. Because in Vedic days, Abhijit Nakshatra was also one of the nakshatras, 28. But why 28? Because the Vedic calendar, they followed, in those days, and Vedic calendar is like tens of thousands of years back, right? Before Ramayana days. 30 days, because they used lunar days and they did all the yajnas. So it starts with a new moon to a new moon, right? Or a full moon to a full moon, it's 30 days. If that is the case, it comes to 360. What happened to the 5 days? No, actually, those 5 days was used to do Adhiratra Yajna. So every year, all the rishis used to sit around in Vedic days. We are talking about Krita Yuga time, where everyone knew how to do the yajnas. They would sit around and for 5 days they did a continuous yajna. Literally, what they are thinking is, hey, when I am doing it, I am giving my time back, like how you do Sandhya Vandan to say that I am protecting the sun and the against all the demons, right? That is the word people use, even though it is allegorical. In the same way, those 5 days, they did a continuous yajna called Adhiratra Yajna so that they can usher in the new year again. They are like giving thanks to sun for being orderly. Because like I said in the start, right? The minute sun stops becoming regular, we are all gone. We are there here only as long as the sun is regular, the planets are moving. Gravity changes, we'll all be flying out. That is the problem. That is why we are not able to take over the other planets. Gravity is completely different. So that is why 28 days were there in the Vedic calendar for the 5 days. But then when Krita Yuga became Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, people stopped doing yajna, everyone, right? So they had to do that 27 days because no one is going to do the 5-day Adhiratra Yajna, right? So they said, okay, let's now make it commercial, right? Let's make it easier for everyone. So it became 27. That is why the 28th is dropped. So there was a reason. It was not random why it was 28 nakshatras and why it is 27 nakshatras now. Then there is something called tithis. Tithi, what is a tithi means in English? Tithi is a day. That's it. In Tamil, deity, right? What is in Kannada? Huh? Tithi. So tithi means a day. That's why Atithi, right? Who is Atithi? Atithi. He doesn't give a date. Comes and knocks on the door, right? Hey, I'm Atithi. I didn't schedule a time, I'm sorry. Today we are like, let's match calendars, right? Oh, you're in Saturday. We keep doing that, right? In those days, no one did that. There were people who were hungry for knowledge. They used to go places trying to learn. And they are going from place to place. They get tired once in a while. They'll find the first house or a hut that was there, knock on the door and say, Atithi, I have come. And immediately in those days, what people used to do is, whenever an Atithi comes, they'll ask that person to sit down and give water. Why? Because they know that this person has traveled. He's not traveling for leisure. He's not walking to do a speed walking or like marathon or like leisurely walking, right? This person is going after knowledge. So he cannot wait, which means that most probably he didn't have time to drink water anywhere. He's running from place to place. How many of you had worked? Say that, oh my God, I forgot to drink water today. And then you hydrate yourself. That's exactly what the life of an Atithi is. They keep going from location to location, trying to gather knowledge, learn, etc. So first they give water to quench his thirst, feed him, and then say you can stay how long ever you want. He stays, rests, then boom, he starts walking again. So that is a Tithi. That doesn't give a date, right? So that is Tithi. Tithi means a day. So we understood the lunar, there are 15 Tithis in one Paksha. When the moon is changing from new moon, which is no moon, to a full moon, it is 15. Like Prathama, Dvidiya, Tritiya, 1, 2, 3, right? That's actually numbered as 1, 2, 3 only. Prathama, what? Pratipata, right? 1. Pratipata is the start. Varsha Pratipata, first, right? So Pratipata, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami, Sashti, like that we go. And then we go to dasas, right? Like 10. Ekadasi, Dwadasi, Trayodasi, Chaturdasi. And then we say it's a Purnima or a Amavasya. Purnima, full moon, Purnima, complete, full moon. Amavasya, right? I cannot see it. The moon is gone. That is what it was. But that is also not random. It is that time taken for the longitudinal angle between sun and the moon to change by 12 degrees. Which means that this is not time based. This is not an accurate 24 hours. That is why sometimes you see tithis continuing for the second day. Because our tithis are not based purely on sun. This is a lunar calendar, right? The lunar calendar, it's got to be with moon. And it has got to coincide with the sun also. So rather than tithi being a day, that's why we don't call it as a weekday, right? We don't call it as vara and a day. We say tithi separately because a tithi is the time taken for the angle to change between the sun and moon by another 12 degrees. Why 12? That's the homework for you all, right? I'll give you a hint. Yeah. Okay, there is 12 houses, but why 12 degrees? It's 360 degrees, right? 12 has to come somewhere. So do the math at your home. You'll find that there are 27 nakshatras, 12. Do all the math and see where it is coming up, right? I will leave it there. Yes, Somji. There you go. I mean, you gave the answer. I wanted the kids to do the homework, but okay, he's already given the answer. Not that anyone is going to do the homework, right? They're like, yeah, we'll see. Exactly. So do the math. You got it correct. It's something to do with the 12, 27, 365, and that's why our tithi is 12 degrees. You got it right. And that is why tithi might not be exactly 24 hours. As 24 hours means nothing. There is no watch for us, right? We are always matching it with the sun and the moon. So we say, oh, okay, a tithi has completed. That is how people were doing it. And each tithi has two karanas. is divided into two, right? Morning and evening, right? Equivalent. Like that, they had two Karanas. This is how we have divided from a month, a year, to the month, to the week, to the day, right? Either in the solar or the lunar side. And I will give you one last thing. Now, we will go the opposite direction. We started with the year. We saw how the sun is divided into 12 months, lunar 27 nakshatras. We saw everything and came down to a half a day, right? We could even go into a muhurta and all, right? We'll come into muhurtas. In fact, I think we missed one. Okay. So my slide is missing muhurtas, but I will also add muhurtas, right? So what we did was, we didn't just have a full day and Tithi, Karana into 2 days, right? We also broke it into 60. It was called 60 Gatikas. How many of you heard the word Gatikas? Gatikas. What is the word in Kannada for it? Nadika, we say, right? 24 minutes. How many of you have heard of the every 24 minutes? There are 60 Gatikas per day. 24 hours is divided into 60 Gatikas. Not heard of it? Yes. Okay. In any other language, who can say what is Gatika? In Tamil, it is called Naligai. What is the equivalent in other languages? Gatika. Okay. So, Gadi, exactly. Gadi. So that is 60. 24 hours is divided into 60. And that 24 hours is divided into 60, 2 Gadikas make 1 Muhurta. When they say the Muhurta, right, it is a 48-minute period. So when they say Brahma Muhurta, right, they are talking about 248 periods put together. So Brahma Muhurta is what? 48 plus 48, right? How much is it? 96 minutes, right? An hour and a half plus something. That is what a Muhurta with the names are. Two Muhurtas are joined together and given a name. Brahma Muhurta, this Muhurta, that Muhurta, etc. Brahma Muhurta is famous because everyone says Brahma Muhurta, right? Get up early in the morning and study. Brahma Muhurta is 1 Muhurta before the sunrise. That is why it's called Brahma Muhurta, right? The time when creation happens, right? Your brain is at the best. We are teenagers, right? We get up during the afternoon Muhurta, whatever it is. Don't worry, I also do the same. Each Gatika is further divided into Palas, right? 60 Palas, they call it. The Palas is like 24 seconds. So if it's like 24 minutes, it became 24 seconds. And that each Pala is further divided into 60 Vipalas, right? So we went to that minute level calculated. So this was what we did, right? We went all the way from top to bottom, 1 year, all the way into a Vipala, which is like a sub-second. This is what our Hindu calendar did. Now I want to go to the opposite direction, right? We'll keep it very small. There's like just 2 more slides. We got a year, but how many years are there? Not like 2026 and coming up with this nonsensical numbers, right? There has to be something, there is some cycle, right? We saw everything was a cycle from the year onwards. We said that the sun is going around, everything is coming and all that. So everything was cyclical from a year all the way down to this micro sub-second. But what about above the year? Is there any cyclical thing there? Because definitely our ancestors were not living 1 year back. They were living thousands of years back, and they did it thousands of years before, which means they should have seen something cyclical even above more than a year, right? And the first thing they saw was 60 years. They said there are 60 years, 60 samvatsaras, and they gave the name. There are 60 years. Years is samvatsara. And what is the name of this samvatsara? And they gave a name for each one. What is this samvatsara name? Vishwavasu is the name of this samvatsara. So when you are watching a video in 2032, calculate when this video was done. It was during the Vishwavasu samvatsara. That was when we did this video. So the name of it is Vishwa, Vasu. So we gave 60 names because we saw that once every 60 years, the cycle repeats. Now, why did we come up with 60? Cannot be a random number. Any guess, kids? Give me a guess on why they said 60. The numbers they were doing like 60 minutes, 60 seconds, everything. Why can't we go the other side and say 60 years, right? Who thinks that is the right answer? Person can live only 60 years. Jay, come on. Let's live some more, right? Why can't we live 120 years? Average life. Our man is very strict. He want to give us only 60 years. No, our rishis were living hundreds of years. Remember? This came during our rishis' time. So what else could be there? I mean, this is a great reason. Who thinks this is the right reason or the only reason? No one. If you don't think this is the right reason, you have to give me some other reason. Everywhere 30 and 60 is coming up, right? Somewhere. But any other reason why we said 60 years? Why the cycle is 60? There's got to be something, right? It cannot be just random number. They could have kept 108 because we saw 108 is a number which is very sacred to our Hindu calendar. 360 degrees. Okay. Correct. The one solar, yeah, exactly. One sun's full year is 225. But why 60? 225 and 60 doesn't match, right? You're coming close. It's something beyond the 1 year, right? There's got to be a reason for 60. There you go. You're coming very close. Two biggest grahas, planets. We said, right? 7 days, 5 major planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. They have found out that Saturn is a 30-year cycle. You know that, right? It takes 30 years for Saturn to complete one full revolution around the sun. So you are close. But why this, right? And the reason is exactly this. It's 30. That's still 30. Why 2, right? This is math. Our rishis were great in math. What could be the next reason? How 30 became 60? Let's take the next biggest, right? Jupiter, right? The largest planet. More profound effect on us. In fact, that's the oldest planet in the solar system, they say. In fact, that was the first planet that was formed from the Big Bang in the solar system. That's what they claim. So Jupiter, how many years does it rotate? One whole revolution, how long does it take? 12 years. That's what they say. So if Jupiter is 12, Saturn is 30, where is 60 coming again? All these little planets and all they add and say, take it, right? No, there is another thing. There is a math here. I won't leave you guys. I'm a professor in that way. Okay, let's do math. Let's do 7th grade math. How many of you heard of the word least common multiple? Yes. Who can give me what is the least common multiple of 12 and 30? 60. There you go. That is why they found out that once every 60 years, Jupiter and Saturn comes to the same location in the solar system. So yes, both of you are correct in your own small ways. Now you connected your knowledge, right? This is what we did. So we said every 60 years this phenomenon is repeating. I'm going to put it as 60 year cycle. And that's why we have 60 samvatsaras. Now last part. Eras. Era is something which we all know because 2026 Western calendar had an era. They call it the common era, right? They said like from when it was earlier called the Christian era, but it was religious. We said we got to secularize it, so we call it the common era. So era is something where significant event happens and we change our calculations because your actual calculations cannot be changed. 30, 60 years, 1 year, 365.25, tithis, gatikas, they cannot be changed. but you can also tell when things happened. And for us, one of the most significant era is the Kali Yuga, when the Krishna Avatara ended and Mahabharata ended, and then Krishna, you saw that, right? Krishna has completed his avatar and he said, I am leaving. And we said that was the end of the Dwapara Yuga, and now Kali Yuga started. And we started calculating it, and therefore 3102 before Common Era, which is 5,000 years back. This is when we said exactly Mahabharata happened and Krishna Avatara ended. How did we know that? We saw in the lecture, right? We looked at astronomical dates, we went, calculated, and Nilesh Oaks did it. It came up, we know it was 3102. And that's why when you do your Vedic calendar, they will say currently it is Kali Yuga. They will say now Kali Yuga is happening, and they will say this is the year that is happening. Like that, there are other eras that is happening. Western calendar, Common Era we saw. There could be different eras. One of you can start your own era, become a president of USA and say like, hey, henceforth, it's a new era for USA. Henceforth, it will be known as my name era, right? Whatever is the name. I'm not saying the name, right? It's not a political discourse. So it could be your name era, and you start a new era, right? We'll start the calendar again, 0. What doesn't change? The days, the months, the years, everything, right? It's just a calendar. So we had Saka era, we had Salivahana era, and Vikram Samvat. These are the different eras we had. So before I close it and ask questions, we didn't leave it era. We did some more, right? I didn't want to go into it because there is a lot of debate about whether it's religious or scientific. But I was going to tell you, right? So when you do Sankalpa in any puja, you go and ask our Mandir Pandit, I'm going to do a puja for me. He will start. What does he start with? Adya Brahmane. How many of you remember Sankalpas? Adya Brahmane, Dvitiya Pararte, Shvetavaraha Kalpe, Vaivasvatamanvantre, Ashtavimsati Tame, Kali Yuge, then Pratame Pade. From there it starts. Kali Yuga we saw. It started. Prior to that, there was a Manvantra. How many Manvantras? So this is, what Manvantra this is? Vaivasvata Manvantras. There are Manvantras. The Manvantras added up into a Kalpa. And the Kalpa is also named based on what Kalpa it is. What is the name of this Kalpa? Shvetavaraha Kalpa. This is a Kalpa. And these Kalpas add up to different days, right? So how they usually say is, one Yuga is Kali Yuga, and from Kali Yuga, right, you do a 1:2:3:4. There are 4 Yugas. If Kali Yuga is X, then Dwapara Yuga is 2x number of years. Then Treta Yuga is 3x. Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga is 4x the number of years. And the whole thing makes one Chatur Yuga or one Maha Yuga, they call it. And then they say that one Maha Yuga is like some people say it's a day for Brahma. And if one day for Brahma is for 1,000 Chaturyugas, they say if you add all the Chaturyugas and do it 1,000 times, that's one day for Brahma. So 1,000 Chaturyugas is just one day for Brahma. And Brahma, based on this calculation, is already 51 years old. So that is the concept of time for us. And if you do some calculations, and there is a lot of debate how accurate this calculation is, but it comes very close to 4.32 billion years. This number we have heard somewhere, if you are reading astronomy or astrophysics. That is the start of the Big Bang. So Big Bang started 4.32 billion years, and that coincides with the age of Brahma. Whether we used Brahma as an allegory to tell that Big Bang started and how the cyclical time is running, or maybe that is the concept of Brahma, that is debatable, right? But the fact is, our concept of time in which we are calculating thousands of years ago is matching with the Big Bang calculations done in the recent era. That is our entire Hindu calendar. The Hindu calendar we saw from Big Bang to a sub-second, not based on anyone's whim, not based on anyone's power or anything, but purely based on astronomical things which are happening, which is much beyond us, right? things have been there, and sun has been there for billions of years. And it will continue to be there, which means that our time has to stand. It says that you have to test the stand, you have to stand the test of time, they say, right? That is what our Hindu calendar is about. And that is why initially I said, we got to be proud we have the Hindu calendar. We gave the Hindu calendar to the world. Whether the world is using it or not, does not matter. It was used earlier. Surya Siddhanta was actually referred by Alberoni. It went into Arabia. And when Father Gregory, wanted to actually calculate all of this, he used the Arabian mathematical calculations. So which means the Arabian calculations came from Surya Siddhanta. Surya Siddhanta came from Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta's everything was from Vedanga Jyotisha, which means that we literally contributed calculations of time to the world. I'll stop here. Any more questions? Any questions?
Looking at the weather patterns, whenever you see a Panchangam, right, they talk about the weather patterns.
Correct.
How it's happening for the whole year, they're trying to predict, right?
Correct.
So, but in new era of the predictions, they don't do that.
Correct.
They do only what is coming up next 10 days.
Correct. They use a radar, what they can see only they see.
What they can see,
Exactly.
right? So, but they cannot predict how it was like 100 years back and what is the average of that and how it's going to be.
Correct.
For next year or something.
Very good observation. So if you open the Panchang, very similar to the almanac, right? But since ours is scientific based, we are seeing that we are predicting when there will be rains, when there will be monsoon, because the regularity we have seen for years and we have baked it into our Panchang. But weather keeps changing, climate changing, people put more stuff. What people do is, they start doing bad things. Ozone layer gets a hole. And what happens when ozone layer gets a hole? The weather patterns changes. And then a corona comes, things resets, we are back to there. Because the earth, the stars, the universe is much, much older than humans. That is why for us, human is only a creation. That is why Brahma is 51 years old, right? He is created. It's all creations, right? Creation is something to do with what can be destroyed. If you have created, you can destroy it. Whereas what we talk about in Vedas is the life, the prana, right? We call it Amrita. We never die. The Atma never dies, we say, right? Because that is beyond. That is why we don't say creator, creations, right? We use the word creator, creations for perishable stuff. For life, we say manifestation. That's why in Sanatana Dharma we say that, hey, there is divinity that is manifesting into everyone. That is why we say we are all equal. And we forget it once in a while and all problems come. But in reality, we are all equal. Yes.
I have two questions, but I'll start with my first question. When it comes to Tithi, so why is it the Tithi in US and Tithi in Bharat? So Bharat is considered to be ahead when it comes to the movement. So sun rises there first and then later. But why is it that, like Ganpati, for example, it comes earlier here versus there?
This is an excellent question. If you really see, right, we are used to so much with the time zones. We say, hey, Monday, if it's in Bharat, it's Sunday here, which means we will do it tomorrow. That's what we say, right? The new year starts, right? Sydney, we see where the fireworks starts, the solar calendar. And say we have another 8 more hours before it comes here, right? And that's what we do. We look at the Japanese stock exchange, we see the Nikkei, what it is doing, and then we are, hey, we got 8 more hours to trade, right? This is what was happening when you do the solar calendar alone. But our ancestors are a little more thinking than this. They said all festivals, all utsavas, all pujas will be based on the lunar calendar. And it's based on a tithi. But why did they choose lunar calendar? While the sun rises at different times across the globe, because like by the time sun rises for you, it's already somewhere in noon in Bharat, right? Because like 12 hours, right? Or it's ready to set also. In UK it is noon. This is how the sun moves. But do you know that the moon phase is exactly the same all over the earth at the same time? Which means that when a new moon is starting, the entire world at that time, the moon is gone. There's not even a sliver of moon at the same time. It could be morning for you, it could be night for someone else, it could be afternoon for someone else, but new moon, everyone gets to see the same moon at the same time. You don't see a different moon. You see moon at different locations, but it's exactly the same moon. And that is the reason why you never see the other side of the moon. People say that the dark side of the moon. The moon rotates, but we have never seen the opposite side of the moon. We have always seen only one side of the moon. If you look at it, all the holes, craters, you see the patterns. That is the same pattern you see. If it is rotating, the pattern should shift, right? You should see the pattern here, and the next day it should be gone, and the third day half of the pattern should be seen, and the fourth day it should come back. That's not what is happening. Because the moon phase is common across the earth at the same instant. That is why all our pujas, Ganpati puja or whatever puja, is based on a tithi, and the Chaturthi tithi comes exactly at the same time all over the world. So which means that when you are doing charad, right, or you are putting something, tying your raksha, in US they say do it in the night, 8 o'clock. In Bharat they will say do it in the morning, 7:30. It's not that they are doing it in 2 days. You both are doing it at exactly the same time. Except that as per the Western calendar, you are 1 day behind. So it looks like as though you are having puja for 2 different days. But in reality, what you should do is, everyone should do the tithi at the exact same time. And of course, in US nowadays, we do it during weekends, right? We forget tithi. It's like nearest Saturdays when we do it. So, but this is the reason. So it looks like as though it is 2 different days, but it's exactly the same tithi. Which means if I don't follow the tithi, and I follow the day, it looks like as though I'm doing Ganpati on 2 different days.
Even tithi, I have seen, there is always, we have, between me and my mom, there is always that discussion, like mom says it's next day, why are you doing it today? But the tithi also...
Yeah, when you talk to your mom, you should ask her this. Did Chaturthi start today? For her. When did it start? She says 8 o'clock. Right? You will say it's 8:30 today in Texas, the previous night, and Chaturthi has started for me. Which means that it is not 2 different times. Yes, it is 2 different Western days, but it's exactly the same time for you and me. So when Tithi has started for you, it has started for me also.
Okay. So then is the muhurta different?
Muhurta is also exactly the same.
Okay.
So because Muhurta is, we saw, right? It is like a Tithi divided into Gatikas, which we saw that it was 2 Gatikas, 1 Muhurta.
Something about Udaya Tithi also, right? Like when the day starts, whatever is the Tithi.
So now what happens is, this is a good question. So I said Tithi is not exactly the number of hours every day. Why? Because it is the time taken for the sun and the moon's angle to change by 12 degrees. So it could be 23 hours one day, it could be 41 hours the other day, depending upon how the position of the sun and the moon is changing. So there comes a day sometimes when a tithi changes twice. Like it changes twice, right, on the same day. So now they say, which day do I take? There is a confusion. So they do Udyamana Tithi, right? They say sunrise, what is the Tithi available? That is your Tithi. So don't confuse, they said. So they are bringing the solar and the lunar together. So what happens if there are 41 hours? You get Atik Tithi. If you see in your calendar, they will say today is Adik Tithi, which means today is Chaturthi also. Because sunrise, you had Chaturthi yesterday, you're going to have Chaturthi today also. It's going to change right after sunrise. Therefore, your Chaturthi twice, it's Adik Tithi. And that is the background.
Thank you, Raji.
Dhanyavad.
And this is the preparation for this demo lecture. We had around 3-4 months of preparation. There's a lot, many works went behind this for this 1 hour session, or little over an hour session. And we understand what all Raji showed today, only adults who born in India could ask the question, but none of you from here other than Rajveer for a small question. This happened because The terms he used, Tithi, Purnima, Amavasya, those things, um, if you start observing what our parents do at home, and we get familiar to those words, terminologies, and if you are very serious in the classes which you go for a religious class or cultural classes like art, music and all, those terms if you seriously look into, then you can connect that very well with what Rajji said and you won't feel bored. And of course, and we are all elders and 60, 50 and all, and you are the one who should be taking this knowledge system forward. So I request Rajji to continue it in the years come also and make it even more little simpler for the American born generation to better understand. And for today's wonderful lecture, thank you so much.
Dhanyavad ji. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to thank Sangeet Bharati for taking the, not only making sure that our Sangeet is moving forward, but the Sangeet is moving forward with samskaras. Making sure that the tradition is kept, not just music, right? Music is talent, but samskaras are important. And I want to thank Sangeet Bharati for doing this and additional gratitude for giving me a chance to talk on the Sankranti lecture series.
No problem. And Rajji Chandrasekhar is not just an invitee for today's lecture. He is supporter of Sangeet Bharati since its inception. He is there for a long time with us, and he always says Sangeeta Bharati is putting Shastriya back to Sangeeta. That's a very favorite line I always cherish, Rajji, from you. Thank you so much.
Dhanyavad ji.
And our Sangeet Bharati's next lecture is on coming Vijayadashmi, on Navaratri and compositions. That will be more on a musical side because we have a lot of compositions on Navaratri. So Shanti Mahadevanji from Dallas, and she will be giving the lecture on coming Navaratri. So stay tuned and follow us on Sangeet Bharati group. And then stay back for the group picture.
Dhanyavad ji.